Okay, well, I have posted the a number of things. So let's just take a look at what I have posted on the Moodle site. So so the most important thing today is to talk more about the FFT and the next homework, and that's kind of really necessary for you to even begin to appreciate what the project involves. So as I said, the homework is long and intense, but that's going to help you understand about the project. So okay, so let me just quickly go through the project. So project due dates. So read this carefully. I have listed suggested due dates with the final presentations on May 13th and 14th. Every student will have 30 minutes to present. So anyway, I will talk more about these as we move along, but I think as the course material for the exam and homework will stop really after first week after the spring break. So let's see, today is 14th, so by 28th I should be done with material in chapter 7 on systolic arrays, and that homework should be due a week from that day, 3 weeks from today. So that should be homework 8. And then we will ramp up on these projects, and that's so read these. What exactly are these projects? So these projects, I've listed a number of them here corresponding to so-called real input and complex input. So read these, and there are citations here for different papers to look at, and the point size of the FFT. So a typical project, I plan to assign you, unless you tell me you have another idea about project, you want to do something else, send me email. I'm open to discussing those with you. But otherwise, your project will be something like X, I, Y, J. So for example, it could be A3C4. So if I tell you what A3C4 means, that's 2 parallel radix 2 squared FFT for point size 2K, 2048. So that's kind of So I can assign you, I can email you what your project is. So you will hear from me something like A3, C1, B1, C5, things like that. That's your project. Okay, so definitely there are at least 40. If I add these A and B, that's 8 times point size 5. So at least we can create 40 projects in the class. That's more than twice the number of students in the class. So everyone should have a unique project. Projects are individual. You are very welcome to discuss with your friends. It is all right to talk to your friends, but your project will not be exactly same as your friend's project. So, okay. All right. So, well, let me see. Let's see where we were. Okay, we'll come back to this. Let's see what I was talking about at the end of last class. So, oh yes, okay. So we were talking about real FFT. So I guess that's probably what I began talking about. Okay. Okay. So, all right. So I began talking about real FFT, and I talked about the fact that in previous modems, such as ADSL modems, the companies used to implement real IFFT and FFT. So IFFT in the transmitter and the FFT in the receiver for ADSL applications by taking an n point signal, creating an n by 2 point complex signal, computing n by 2 point complex FFT, and then doing a lot of post processing. So what post processing is going on is something I want to teach in this class, but I may teach in the class next semester. So by the way, so those of you who are wondering what will be the next semester class about, that's a lot of the chapters that I want to teach this. So next semester's class, if you are thinking about taking the EE 5549 class, that is a very different class from this class. So no Verilog, and that is really more an algorithm class. The class that you are taking right now is a class mostly in architectures. That class is more, well, I shouldn't say exactly algorithm, but algorithm and structures. And I think the most, let's see, we will briefly review some of the concepts, but mostly the chapters I think are in that class are 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and lots of other things, lots of papers. And so anyway, so that's kind of that's for fall. And in that class I will talk about what this post processing is. So we'll spend some time, but not in this class. Okay, so the briefly I talked about the fact that if the signal is real, then we don't really need to compute the complex conjugates. So xk is conjugate of xn minus k. So for example, if n is 16, then x0 is well, that doesn't help very much. Okay. So well, okay, it says that, okay, well, let's put it, it says that it's conjugate of x 16, which really then means, by the way, because this is periodic with period 16, x conjugate 16 is the same as x conjugate 0 because it's periodic, and that, by the way, implies x0 is equal to x conjugate 0 implies that x0 is a real value. If it is 3 plus j x is conjugate of is same as 3 minus j x, x must be 0. And similarly, if I put k equal to 8, if I substitute, and that says again x8 is conjugate of x16 minus 8, which is 8, and that also implies x8 is real. Okay, so we know that x0 and x8 are real, and the other signals, if for any other k, so for example x10 is conjugate of x6. So given let's say that we have x0 through xn minus 1. So these are the time domain samples, time domain n samples. So we have n values, and then if we compute the FFT of that, then we get x0 and xn by 2. So these are real values. So out of n, these are 2, and the remaining are n by n minus 2, n minus 2 values left, and out of those n minus 2 by 2 compute n minus 2 by 2 complex outputs. So so we are arguing that for the remaining n minus 2, half of them are conjugate symmetric, and we don't need to compute them. So the total number of total degrees of freedom, or total number of samples, is again this is real, this is real, this is complex. So this is like a plus jb. So there are 2 quantities for each of these complex samples. So 2 times that is n minus 2 plus 2 is again n. So obviously that is intuitively expected if I start with FFT is a linear transform. So if I start with n degrees of freedom and compute a linear transform, although it looks as if we have n minus 2, well, it looks as if we have x0 and xn by 2, and then 2 times n by n minus 2. So these are 2 samples, and then n minus 2 complex samples multiply by 2, so 2n minus 4 plus 2. So it appears as if we have taken a n degrees of freedom, n independent samples, and the linear transform is computing 2n minus 2 values. That means we are creating a lot of dependent samples where the degrees of freedom is still n. We can't create more than n independent quantities out of n quantities by linear operations. So if you construct a matrix, the rank will still be n, and so it may give an illusion that we are creating more independent outputs. We are not. So because half of these are complex conjugates of each other, so this 2 times n minus 2 is really n minus 2 complex signals, which is n minus 2 values. If you take real and imaginary as each of these as an independent value, n minus 2 plus 2 is total samples is n. So a lot of what the real FFT tries to do is how can we design architectures that do not require this pre-processing and post-processing, but rather compute just the samples that we need. And that's really so that's the intent. And so I talked briefly about the first paper we published in 2009. So let's get to some of those papers, and then I may come back and talk more about those. So let me briefly talk about the basic ideas. So let's look at the paper by my pre-doctoral visitor Mario Garrido, who came here and spent 3 months or so to do his pre-doctoral research work. Okay, all right. So So, as I explained briefly last class, and we will talk a little more today. So the way we decide what samples to throw out, so this is the uh, structure here. So this is the first stage. These are all real. The beginning samples are all real. After first stage, these samples are also real. So these are real butterflies. If these values are A, if the butterfly values are A and B, we are computing A plus B and A minus B. These are real. If you see these numbers marked here 0, 1, 2, 3, what are these numbers? These are the Tweedle factors. If you see a number like 3, that's W cube, where W is e to the power minus j twice pi over n. This is 16 point, n is 16. So W is e to the power minus j twice pi over 16 or minus j pi by 8. So for example, if 3 is placed on this edge, that's Tweedle factor W cube, which will be e to the power minus j 3 pi by 8. Okay, well, so what happens? Well, at least the top half remains real, but the bottom half, after we multiply these complex complex multiplication values, these W1, W2, etc., these W's are e to the power minus something, e to the power j theta is cosine theta plus j sin theta. So these are complex numbers. Real signal multiplied by a plus j b is going to be a complex number. So these butterflies are no longer real, but they are complex. But I am throwing away half of these. So what looked like 4, what we are left with here is 4 half complex butterflies. I am not computing the bottom butterflies, which are something minus something. So 4 half complex butterflies can be written as real butterfly. So let me talk a little bit about what that means. What does it really mean, that complex butterfly? So what does a butterfly do? Let's say I have a complex number a plus jb, c plus jd, and we compute this is a complex butterfly. So this computes a plus c, that's the real part, plus j times b plus d, and here we compute a minus c plus j times b minus d. So that's a complex butterfly. Okay, so that complex butterfly can be expanded to two real butterflies. So I can say, okay, well, now we can take the real parts a and c and compute a plus c, a minus c, and I can take the imaginary parts b and d, and I can compute the imaginary parts b plus d and b minus d. So this one complex butterfly is equivalent to 2 real butterflies. Okay, so one complex butterfly is same as 2 real butterflies. Okay. Now what about half a complex? If I don't include the bottom half, so I have a plus jb, c plus jd, and then I have only half a butterfly. I don't need this. Okay, so that's half complex butterfly, and that's just computing a plus c plus j times b plus d, and that we can say, okay, we now take okay, so we take a. So I want to expand this to one real butterfly, half a complex butterfly. So this is equivalent to 2 real butterflies. Half a complex butterfly should be equivalent to 1 real butterfly. Okay, so we have a and c. Okay, so that's computing a plus c, and b well, so if you think about in the same location, we also had B and D, and then we are computing here B plus T, and it's so in the data, so the data path or the circuits that you are designing, circuits don't really keep track of who is real and who is imaginary. So you have to keep track of what is going on when you compute. So that's the real part, and this is the imaginary part. So so think of this as one equivalent to one real butterfly. So half a complex butterfly is equivalent to one real butterfly. Okay. All right. So let's just briefly talk about few more things. So let's say that I have okay, so let's say that I have something like I have a signal here, I multiply W squared, I multiply W to power 6, then we have the butterfly, and then there is some other twiddle factor. Well, I don't really know, but let's say there is twiddle factor W to power A, W to power B. I'm not sure what those are, but let's say that. Okay, so then this can be equivalent to so what exactly is going on here? So what we are showing here is that if we have W squared, so this is n equal to 16, so W is e to the power minus j twice pi over 16, W to the power 4, this quantity is e to the power minus j 8 pi over 16, which is minus j pi by 2 or minus j. Okay, so if this quantity is real and this quantity is real, and then you will see that this is still real, but this is multiplied by minus j, this is purely imaginary. So so it's important to think about the fact that this is called twiddle pushing. We are pushing the twiddle factor to the right. So we are pushing twiddle factor W squared, sorry, W, something is wrong, W is A plus 2, B plus 2. Okay, we are pushing a twiddle factor W squared to the right. So if I push W squared to the right, this is W to power 0, which is 1, this is W fourth, and that W fourth is minus j. So that's not a real multiplication, that's just taking a real number and interpreting that as a imaginary number with a negative sign. And what do you think is going on in this butterfly here? If we have a real quantity here and an imaginary quantity here, and we are computing this operation, this butterfly operation. So I have something like A and JB, and we have this butterfly here. So what are we computing here? This is A plus JB and this is A minus JB. Okay, that's what the butterfly computes. Okay, so so this is the so as you will see, so there is nothing really being computed here. We are not computing anything. When we talk about computing something that is that's what we mean by computing something. A and C, add the real parts, add the imaginary parts. When we put A plus JB, that's just saying that's called an append operation. You can think of these as append. I mean, that's just taking A and B and interpreting that as a complex number A and B. There is no add or subtract going on. Nothing is being computed here. It's just keeping two separate numbers as real and imaginary. Same here. This is not, there is nothing being computed. So by pushing the Tweedle factor W squared to the right, we are able to reduce the number of operations. There is just swap operation here. This butterfly has disappeared. That's just keeping track of these numbers. We are not adding or subtracting anything. Okay, so these are some of the tools we need to use for real FFT. So let's get back to the paper here. So the first paper that we will go to the computer screen and look at the paper now. Excuse me. Okay. Okay. So now, so when I was making this remark, this is half a complex butterfly, and throw this part and expand it to make it one real butterfly. That's, and you know what I was trying to say. And this is one complex butterfly. Remove this part and expand that to make two real butterflies. That's what I've explained what I meant by that. And if you do those things and push some Tweedles. Now what you see here, these numbers in the second part used to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Guess what? The 0 and 4 are fine. We didn't do very much. But if you look at the next butterfly, this was 1, this was 5. We pushed 1 to the right. Next one, 2 and 6. We pushed 2 to the right, become 0 and 4. Next one was 3 and 7. We pushed 3 to the right, then we have 0 and 4. Now all 4s are not computing anything. That's just minus j. They are just taking real numbers and interpreting them as imaginary numbers. Do you see what we are trying to do? Okay. All right. So then in these boxes, those are again the Tweedle numbers on the right hand side. So this ultimately goes on to design four parallel architectures, which was the first paper that we published. But when Salehi came to do his pre-doctoral degree and then stayed on to do his PhD. So let's look at the paper that Salehi worked on. So this is something, your homeworks are all about this paper, so you will read more details. So, so what I tried to do in this paper, basically so the previous paper didn't talk about two parallels. So this paper talks about two parallel design. So your homework is going to derive this figure 3 and control circuits and so on. So this is the same 16 point. There is a small difference. I tried to make it clearer in these diagrams. So if you look at these circles are all real numbers. Circles are all real numbers. If you look at these empty squares are purely imaginary numbers. So circle was real, multiply by minus j, then we get a purely imaginary, that is a purely imaginary is a empty square. And if you look at this filled circle, this is empty circle and filled circle. Filled circle is an append operation that's taking, there's nothing being computed here at least. So that's just taking this real part and this purely imaginary part and keep track of that as a plus jb, and that field, anytime you see these filled circles, those are complex numbers. Okay, so these are all complex. Multiplied by the Twiddle factor, again still are complex, and these are all complex butterflies. Complex butterflies. This is x4 is half a complex butterfly, and here 2 half complex butterflies, and you can expand them and make them full butterflies, and that figure 2 is the expanded version. So familiarize with your for your homework, familiarize with figure 2. Figure 2 is a nice diagram to see, and I have placed here these timing diagrams. So this is really what I prefer you to think about as you solve these homework problems. Try to keep track of what time instance, what butterfly or what Twiddle factor is being computed. So here I believe that we may have assumed here one stage pipelining probably. So 0, x0 and x8 are okay. Well, it so happens that in this case the assumption is that 0 and 8 are input in clock cycle 0. Okay, then we have one pipelining stage. So that result one node number 1 and node number okay, these are probably not node numbers. These are not node numbers. So okay, so this is 1 means these two are available after one pipelining delay. So they are available in clock cycle 1, and then next cycle x1 plus or minus x9, that's in 2, and so on. Okay, so you can read these things. Then from 1 and 5, butterfly available in clock cycle 5. Okay, and then butterfly W0, that's really a dummy, not a butterfly, that's a Twiddle factor. W to power 0, that's just a dummy Twiddle factor. So it seems we don't assume any more pipelining for this stage here. So the Twiddle factors, this butterfly and Twiddle factor still remains clock cycle 5. That means it's not pipelined yet. 5 and 7, still 7, not pipelined yet. And 7 and 8 are held and are executed at clock cycle 9 and 10. Okay, so maybe there is no pipelining in this whole thing. Okay, maybe we should be assuming the inputs are clock cycle 1 to 8 probably. Although I don't like that notation, so you should always, well, you have some freedom about what to assume. So that's the two parallel architecture. So if we take and map these timings, so 8 butterflies here executed in 8 clock cycles. So it takes xk, k plus n by 2. So x0 and x8 in clock cycle 0 and so on. And then these are the delay switch delay, 4 delay switch delay, 2 delay switch delay, another 2 delay switch delay, and 1 delay switch delay. By the way, let me just say that as you read some of these papers, there is a big difference between papers and textbooks. And don't be surprised if there are mistakes. And first of all, I can tell you that if students are making mistakes, I can't really check each and every mistake that the students write. So, well, that does happen. So, there are these control signals for the delay switch delay. So that's kind of a good paper to read. Let's see. So, okay. So the main thing about this design here is that every data path here in the first butterfly stage, second butterfly stage, third and fourth, everywhere we have only n signals. Anywhere you count, there are 16 samples. 16 samples in the beginning, 16 samples after butterfly stage 1, after butterfly stage 2, butterfly stage 3, and finally 16 samples. And if you look at the 0 and 8, those are real numbers. The next one says XR4, XI4. That's the real part and imaginary part of sample number 4. And you see this butterfly with the very light connections. That means nothing is being computed. There is no computation going on here. Just keeping X4 here, real part and imaginary part. Real part of 2, real part of 10, imaginary part of 2, imaginary part of 10. That's obtained by expanding the complex butterfly to 2 real butterflies. Okay. So you see these real and imaginary parts marked here. The next paper that I want to briefly talk about is yet another approach to the real FFTs, where we do not any longer maintain this so-called canonic data path. That means the number of samples in the intermediate FFT stages can now be more than n. So what that means is we will keep these numbers as complex numbers in the intermediate parts. And so if you look at this simplified data flow, these bold lines are saying that we are not converting them to real and imaginary. So that means if we map these to the data path, the first data path is completely real, the next has real and complex, next has all real. So if you map that to a parallel architecture, something like this here, that's for a 64-point radix 2 cube. You see these bold lines, those are complex data path. Each signal is A plus JB. When I see this number 2, that's 2 complex delays. 2 complex delays are storing 2 complex numbers, which would be 4 physical flip-flops. If you don't see bold lines, that's 8 and 8, that's 8 flip-flops, 8 flip-flops. Bold, that's called a hybrid data path because it is computing some data paths keeping real and some data paths keeping complex. So that's the basic difference between the Salehi paper we looked at and this paper here. The other paper was fully real data path, and this is hybrid data path, where some of the data paths are real and some of the data paths are complex. All right. I want to briefly talk about higher radix and what does that really mean. What does radix 2 squared, radix 2 cube, and what do those things mean? So I placed another paper. I know there is a lot to digest. I mean, this is kind of, I feel bad to have you digest very quickly over a couple of weeks. That the students took years and years to work on, but that's the benefit of reading these papers. We can learn many things quickly. So what does exactly radix 2 squared mean, radix 2 cube mean? So by the way, Salehi has now become professor at University of Kentucky, and Lau finished his PhD, is now professor at Clemson University. Okay, so so here is what the main idea of radix 2 squared is. So if you look at the 16-point RFFT, there's twiddle factors where 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I showed you how to push these to the right. So these all become either w to power 0 or w to power 4, which would be minus j. So think about this. In a, let's say that we have a 1024-point FFT. In a 1024-point FFT, there are twiddle factors after every stage. Okay, twiddle factors after every stage. So there are 10 FFT stages. There is no twiddle factor at the output stage, but the remaining 9 stages contain twiddle factors. What radix 2 squared does is it reduces the twiddle factors from 9 to 5, or in general from n stages to n by log n to half log n stages. How do we do that? Just basic simple idea that I explained. So, you push this to the right, these are all 0 or minus j, no more multiplication, just keep real or swap as imaginary. Do same thing after every even clock cycles, after after every even FFT stage. After FFT stage 0, push twiddles to the right. After FFT2 stage 2, push twiddles to the right. So, now stage 1, stage 3, 5, 7 and 9 have twiddle factors, and the twiddle factors after stages 0, 2, 4, 6 and 8 are not real twiddle factors. They are just either w to power 0 or w to power 4. They are just swapping or in general w to power n by 4. In this case n is 16, n by 4 is 4. So, they are just swapping real to imaginary or keeping real as it is, and that is what is radix 2 squared. And radix 2 squared is in fact one of the most efficient FFT structures, because it has multiplication only half the number of FFT stages, unlike radix 2 where we have twiddle factors after every stage. So, instead of having twiddle factors after log n minus 1 stages, after the last one we do not have twiddles. So, instead of log n minus 1 stages of multipliers, now we have half log n. So, that is radix 2 squared. Okay, radix 2 cube is a little bit there is the real multiplication after every 3 stages, but there is also some so called simpler multipliers after every 3l plus 1 stage. So, stage 0, 3, 6 etcetera have no multiply, stage 1, 4, 7 etcetera have a simpler multiply, so called canonic sign digit, and stage 2, 3, 2, 5, 8 etcetera have full multiply. We will get to that. Okay, so, how do we get these structures? Well, just twiddle pushing, that is the basic idea. So, pushing twiddle factors, this shows w to power k, w to power b plus k and w to power c and d. You push w to power k to the right. So, this is 0 w to power b, and then this becomes c plus k d plus k. Now, this b, it so happens, is not any arbitrary number. In this b is in general, okay, so this is so okay, let's leave it like that. When b is either n by 4, n by 2 and 3n by 4, then those are either j or minus j. So, they are essentially or plus or minus 1. So, if it is n by 4 and 3n by 4, that is multiplying by minus j or j. When it is 0 or n by 2, then we are just multiplying by 1 or minus 1. N by 2 would be minus 1. Okay. So, so to illustrate how that, so this figure 5 is a radix 2 decimation and frequency RFFT, and then if we apply, if you look at these blocks, let's see here, it says block A, B, C, D. Block A, okay, let's see if we can get to more details of these. Okay, what is going on in block A, so called block A? So, these used to be w to power 0 all the way to w to power 31. So, twiddle is pushed w to power 15. So, if you look at w to power 0 and w to power 16, that stays as it is. W to power 1 and 17, 1 is pushed. So, now we have 16 here. 2 and 18, 2 is pushed, and at the last 15 and 31, 15 is pushed. Now, what is w to power 16? for a 64-point FFT, that's minus j. Okay. So, that is what we are saying, that is how you get radix 2 squared. Now, in block B marked B, so these were even numbers 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, etc. So, what did we do here? So, first one stays same, w to the power 0 and 16. Next one 2 and 18, push w squared out, now 16. 4 and 20, push w fourth out, and finally w to the power 14 and 30, push 14 out. Now, again these are all minus j. Block C, these are all multiples of 4, w to the power 0, 4, 6, no 0, 4, 8, 12, etc. So, here again 4 and 20, push 4 out, okay, like that. And then block marked D, these are multiples of 8, 0, 8, 16, 24, 0, 16 stay the same, 8, 24, push w to the power 8 out, and these all become minus j. Okay, so how are these blocks marked A, B, C, D are taking advantage of this twiddle pushing? Well, if we look at what was marked in these boxes, so that's box marked block A. Okay, we pushed those, pushed w to the power 1, 2, etc. Block marked B, that's half a block here. These are even powers of w, so we pushed some of those out. By the way, there are these numbers as well, so they will combine with the previous numbers. C, these are powers of 4, w fourth, 8th, and I showed how to push those out, and D, just push w to the power 8 out. And by doing that, we are now guaranteeing that after every even number of FFT stages, we will have minus j, so those twiddles would be gone. Okay, so let's see what does. So now we got this. So by going through those blocks, we now have this what is known as radix 2 squared, and lo and behold, these have become minus j. And if I go to, okay, these have become minus j, and so look at after butterfly stage 1 minus j, after butterfly stage 3 again minus j, after 5 minus j. So there is, if you look at, okay, I should say, okay, after every, well, depends on how you call even and odd, but butterfly stage 1, 3, 5, etc. They are all minus j. So that means there is no multiplication any longer at every alternate stages, and that's called radix 2 squared. So radix 2 squared simply halves the twiddle factor stages. Is that making sense? Well, I certainly you can listen to me, but I think unless you play with these, it's hard to appreciate the time. Even I mean, certainly, as you can see, even to draw these diagrams, my goodness, the students have spent an enormous amount of time. Well, how do you publish papers? You learn to draw diagrams like these and learn how to write, and that's really what I want you to turn in your final report. Will you be able to turn in handwritten diagrams or nicely drawn diagrams? Well, some of you will do nicely drawn diagrams, some may turn in handwritten. Well, whatever it is, I mean, that the intent is for you to learn how to write a paper. I mean, that's kind of the intent. So, okay. So that was radix 2 squared. So let's take a quick look at radix 2 cube and see what this one is showing here. By the way, this paper is about a real FFT, but the idea of deriving radix 2 squared is same for real and complex. Simply push twiddles and make sure that every alternate stage has only minus j, or multiply by 1 or minus j, no real no twiddle factors after every alternate stage. Okay, so if we look at the so-called radix 2 cube, so I see there is some block marked C. Okay, so if you look at what is going on, so this is not same as radix 2 squared. So if you look at, so after the first stage, let's look at after the first stage. So there is definitely no multiplication, twiddle multiplication going on, because all multipliers are 1 or minus j. Now if I look at after third stage, there is a lot of twiddles going on. Okay, that's what we want. But what's going on after second stage? So that's not a full blown twiddle, but some simplified twiddle. So if you look at what is going on, these are w to power 8 and w to the power 24. Okay. So why is it that these w to power 8 and w to power 24 special in these radix 2 cube implementation? So after stage 1, after stage 4, you will see again same thing, w to power 8 and 24. So if the FFT size is 64, what is w to power 8? So that's e to the power minus j 16 pi by 64, which is e to the power minus j pi by 4. So this is really cosine 45 plus or minus j sine 45. So first of all, the cosine and sine are same. So we are simply implementing 0.707 multiply by 0.707 plus or minus j 0.707, and that's 1 over root 2. And those can be implemented by so-called canonic sign digit, which I haven't taught yet, but that's really in chapter 13 in the book, and many implementations in digital filters and modems make use of canonic sign digit. By the way, the Unite students as always have been sending many emails, and I got the comment that students want to do projects, but they want me to teach that chapter 13 and 14 and maybe 15. So maybe we'll at least teach some of those things, if not the whole chapter, maybe teach parts of those chapters. So we'll probably get to canonic sign digit. So those can be implemented as using simple multipliers. So that's what is radix 2 cube. So radix 2 cube means now 1/3 of log n are full blown twiddle multipliers, and 1/3 of them has simply no multiply, and the remaining 1/3 has canonic sign digit. Okay, so let me spend a little time now that we have introduced a number of these ideas. Okay, so read these papers. So let's now spend time talking about the homework. I just want to walk through the homework. Okay, before I walk through what I expect in each of those problems, any questions? Okay, so let's just take a quick look at these homework problems, and then we will get back to. Okay, so all right. So the first problem is these are sequential. Well, not these. This is parallel. So I want you to go through clock cycle by clock cycle and think about. So these kinds of configurations. So there is. So what really is going on in? So let's try to see if I can walk through what is going on. So let's say that I have a circuit here, so a serial circuit that I want to take a signal like ABCD and another ABCD and goes on with period 4. And I want to just exchange these two. So I want to get an output ACBD and continue with that. So what's the minimum latency that we need? So A, if I assume this is input in clock cycle 0, 1, 2, 3, then C, which was input in clock cycle 2 cannot be available at the output before clock cycle 2, and that means A must be available at clock cycle 1. So, that means the minimum latency in this case has to be 1 cycle. Okay, so that should be clear to you. Okay, so now if I do a lifetime analysis of this data format converter, so we have A, B, C, D. This is input. Well, I already know A is live. Okay, so let's see. A is live from 0 to 1, B from 1 to 2, C from 2 to 3. No, C is 2 to 2, B is 1 to 3, B is 1 to 3, and D is 3 to 3. So, D does not need to be stored. D does not need to be stored. Okay, and C does not need to be stored. Something is wrong. So, this is 4. So, D needs to be stored 3 to 4. Yeah, okay. So, let's say this is clock cycle 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. So, A is live from 0 to 1, B from 1 to 3, C 2 to 2, D 3 to 4. Okay. So, as you will realize that there is another A that goes on from 4 to 5. So, this is the A of the next computation, 1 plus 4, 5 to 7. So, there will be another computation of B and another computation of C at 6, and D will be 7 to 8. 7 to 8. Okay. So, now if you look at how many registers, how many flip flops we need, 1 here, 1, 1, always 1. Okay. So, we need 1. Okay. So, if I now just allocate these variables, let us call it simply R. So, A is input, A is input. So, this is clock cycle 0, clock cycle 0, A is input and available in clock cycle 1. In clock cycle 1 I feed B, B is available in clock cycle 3. So, that is clock cycle 2, I need to hold it for one more cycle. In 2 I need to input clock cycle 2, I need to input C, but that does not need to be stored, and in clock cycle 3 I feed D, that needs to be output. So, D needs to be output here, and that B I can feed it back. So, there is empty spot here. So, that is the backward allocation step. In this case, we will just keep it where it is, and if we look at the okay, so in this case we feed back. So, we feed back in 4L plus 2. So, every cycle 4L plus 2 we feed back the output B to the input. So, it is available in the next clock cycle here, and the input at that time C is not stored anywhere and directly goes to output. So, that is done. So, that is kind of that is what the format converter is. And so if you look at this circuit here, that circuit okay, that circuit is equivalent to that circuit there. So, there are essentially one flip flop, two multiplexers. So, this multiplexer here is feeding that backward from the output to here in every second clock cycle 2, 6, 10, etc. So, if I put this as well, what I guess I want to show you is that this is exactly same as this first problem here. So, I want you to understand these traditional circuits. So, this data format converters. So, if you see a circuit like this, multiplexer, one delay, feedback, and these control signals. So, if you look at this control signal clock cycle 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so yeah, something is wrong. I have to look at. I don't think this looks right. So these should be, this 0 should be in position 2 because that should correspond to 4L plus 2. I will look at these. I think the TA again made the mistake in typing these things. So these should be 1101, 1101, 1101, etc. So in clock cycle 2, the input is directly feeding that when that's 0, this is feeding to the output, and in clock cycle 2, just as here in clock cycle 2, that B is fed back here. So same control signal to both muxes. Okay, so think about what happens if this is 2 delays, this is 4 delays. Think about that. Okay, I mean that's kind of so. So if I use the notations used in this typically in these FFT papers, shuffling circuits or permuting circuits. So what do you think going on here? Well, all I have done is changed that D 1 delay to 2 delays. So, so if I have something like A, B, C, D. Okay, so so in this case, if we had a periodicity 4, A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, so all it tries to do is switch these two, switch key. The order A and D remains the same, although with latency, but B and C are switched. That's what it does. B is a delayed, C advances. Okay, so if we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, what do you think with some latency? Well, there will be latency of minimum 2 cycles. So, so all that will do, it will keep again the last and first parts the same. So it will be A, B, and then E, F, and then C, D, and G, H. So there will be latency of 2 cycles. Well, that's essential. I mean, you can't expect. So E, for example, is input 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's clock 4, and that should be clock 4. So right. So that's why I have to have latency 2. So A was input in clock 0, should be output in 2. So that's why we say the latency is 2 clock cycles. So E and F, that position is exchanged. That's what these 2 delays feeding back is doing. Okay, so and what happens with 4 delays? Same thing. So you will now have a periodicity of 16 cycles. So this is periodicity is 8. The other one will have 16. So okay, let me. So this is something we spent some time on the signals going top to bottom, and again this is really so-called delay switch delay. So do spend some time understanding what that is about. Okay, so let's see. So this one, these look pretty complex. I mean, is certainly, if I saw this before I taught whatever I have taught, I would say, okay, well, it seems very, very strange. So we have these 16 signal points, 16 signals x 0, 1 through 15. These look very strange. 0, 4, 1, 5, 2, 6, 3, 7. How do you design a circuit that reorders them like that? And the circuit should be simple. Well, it seems one would be clueless to think about how to even approach solving these kinds of problems. But you are not clueless because you have listened to me this whole class and the last couple of classes. Okay, so well, okay, so let's try to think like this. So by the way, these vertical bars means that's one period. So that's really, that's one period, that's one period. So let's think like this. Let's say that let's say that I can generate x0, x1. So I try to think about switching these two, x0, x1, x4, x5, and then keep 2, and then switch these two. 3, 6, 7. So all I am trying to do is just exchange this 4 and 1 and 3 and 6. Now we see, so now how do I take x0 through x7 sequentially and get a sequence 0, 1, 4, 5, 2, 3, 6, 7? How do we get that? Well, that's what I just talked about. That's what I just talked about. I just mentioned that you just take these two, push them behind, take these two, push them forward. That's what we get. So if I take this and go through the circuit like that, that's what I get. That's the first stage. So the first stage, so it will simply, so the last two and the first two stay the same, 0, 1 and 6, 7 stay the same, only 2, 3 are pushed back and 4, 5 are pushed forward. Now, how do you go from here to here? Any thoughts? Well, that's what this circuit does. Just switches in every periodicity 4, switches these things. So if I now think about periodicity 4, just switches 1 and 4, 3 and 6, and then you get 0, 4, 1, 5. Switch these two. So you will need 2 stages of circuit. First stage like that, and second stage like that, one delay. Okay, so you will have 2 stages. Okay, that seemed like a very difficult problem, which it is. If you are not trained, it's a difficult problem. So, well, you can always resort to the forward-backward allocation. Okay, that certainly, you know how to do that. That certainly should work. That's a valid solution. That may not reduce the number of multiplexers or control circuits, but that's certainly possible. Now, this one is probably more intense, and well, there's nothing wrong if you cannot do it. Well, I suggest you try to do it, at least using forward-backward, but review the solution after I post that. Okay, let's go through the next few problems. So problem 3 is saying that design an interleaved 8-point FFT like the paper in in the TVLSI paper. So the goal here, okay, so think about one 8-point FFT, one 8-point FFT, and that's the forward architecture. So what I want to do now is I want to make it fully hardware utilized. So think about having two of these, okay, A0, A1, A2, A3, and think about another one sitting below that. Everything is same, A0 prime, A1 prime, A2 prime, A3 prime, B0 prime, etc. And now think about whatever was A0, A1, A2, A3. Now you replace these null operations by A0 prime, A1 prime, A2 prime, A3 prime, and then similarly here. And then if you do that, so that's what I'm trying to tell you. So now this is two operations, two 8-point FFTs being computed in an interleaved manner. And now assume that the x 4-point signal x0, x1, x2, x3 and another signal x prime 0, x prime 1, x prime 2, x prime 3 up to x7, up to x prime 7. So these 8 points are coming in two different wires. These are two channels. You will need to change that part, and so redraw. So go through that and see what the interleaved structure looks like. In the next problem, 16-point DIF. Okay, so here we are looking at the figure 11. Figure 11, not 12. Oh, figure 11, okay. So that's the data path of the DIF. So what I have asked you here to do is to, anyway, I have changed this folding a little bit, don't worry about that. So you are supposed to derive the circuit figure 12. So that's kind of the solution is given here, and derive that. So that's problem 4. Let me see what problem 5 says. Problem 5 says in the same paper, 16-point, we now look at the figure 13. This is decimation in time, DIT. So what was the FFTs will look like that in the figure 11. So if you look at these interconnections, this has gone to the last part, this has come to the first part. By the way, I am not teaching in this class, but the DIT FFT will teach these things maybe next semester. DIT FFT is a transpose structure of DIF FFT. Okay, theoretically we can prove that, but we may do that next semester. Okay. Okay, so and from that, using the folding set that we have here, show that this part will change a little bit, but that's going to be something like figure 14. Okay, so the last two problems are on real FFT and hybrid data path and real data path. So this is saying that review the Salehi paper and derive the architecture in figure 3, and I already showed you. So take this, put it into a data flow graph, show the folding sets, and finally get to that point and show these kinds of control circuits. So that's problem 6. And problem 7 is the hybrid data path, is talking about figure 6 of the, okay, so that's the hybrid data path paper, and you start with this structure in figure 6 and put that into a data flow graph and derive a radix 2 squared. Okay, that solution is not in the paper. Okay, that's not in the paper. So I didn't give you the solution to that part. This is radix 2. So radix 2 squared will only be slightly different. Instead of having two complex data path stages, it will have one complex data path stage. Let me see if the solution is here. Oh, there is a solution. Okay, that solution is figure 16, radix 2 squared. Okay, so you will prove this circuit here, radix 2 squared. So all these solutions are in these papers. The exercise really is to go through the intricate details that are missing in the papers to get to these solutions. So, okay, so that's kind of a brief overview of what, while I do expect that you will take time off to relax in spring break, but I do expect that you will have time to do the homework as well. Okay, so I have explained to you what you need to do. Well, we'll stop here. That's kind of, I won't teach any more about FFTs. So we'll start systolic arrays in first class after the spring break. If you did not collect your homework from last class, they are here. So hold on, let me hold it. So you can certainly place your. Are you giving me the new? Yeah, put yeah. You can.